Well, Judy, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this series. Uh, this is already such a powerful lineup we have, and just having you here to talk about all of these things that this audience really struggles with. The majority of this audience really struggles with. Things like I don't have enough self-esteem, or I need to build self-esteem, or there's a lot of negative internal dialogue, and needing approval from other people. And of course, with that, there's a lot of anxiety. So, Judy, can you tell us more about yourself, what you do, and what motivates you to do the work that you do?
Great. Thank you for having me first. Happy to be here. I am a mental health author. I've written 9 books, and my latest one is A Year of Self-Esteem. And it just was recently released a couple months ago. And what motivated me is that I have been a psychotherapist for over 40 years. Now I retired from my practice, my in-person practice, but I do see clients online for mental health coaching. And I also have done a lot of speaking on workplace wellness and mental health wellness for different types of places. And so that's my background. And self-esteem is really the foundation of mental health. If you don't have good self-esteem, you're probably not going to have a happy life.
Yeah.
And I think people underestimate the importance of self-esteem as a cornerstone to your emotional and mental health.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important topic.
Yeah. It's kind of like, really all of our, I would imagine all of our beliefs and our behaviors really are decided from this place of like how we feel about ourselves, like who we are as a person.
Exactly.
Right.
And so often people focus, particularly women, on helping others, being there for others, while they're sometimes feeling very drained and not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be as good for other people until you can be good for yourself.
Yeah.
Every behavior that you have towards others that is caring, you need to do for yourself. However, people who don't have high self-esteem, and there's many of people out there, um, often talk to themselves in ways they would never think of talking to anybody else.
Yeah.
They beat themselves up. They'll call themselves an idiot and be very judgmental and critical. Maybe they're channeling people in their past who are critical of them. But it's never about blame, because we all need to take responsibility for our past and how we deal with it. We can't change the past, but we can handle it differently. And we can decide to some degree how much we're going to keep on recreating the same themes and how much we're going to stop it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think one thing that this audience really struggles with, and I know I struggle with for a long time, is like the difference between confidence and self-esteem. Can you talk a little bit about how would you go about, increasing your esteem versus building confidence? Can you talk a little bit about the differences?
Well, confidence might be a little bit more like building confidence in, speaking in front of a group, or building confidence in handling a situation, whatever. Self-esteem is sort of the underlying sense of worth that you have about yourself
Yeah.
and your ability to treat yourself with self-compassion, forgiveness, gratitude.
Yeah.
So confidence comes from self-esteem, but self-esteem is the breeding ground. And a lot of times, I remember one client I had said, I need to be hard on myself to just keep on getting better. And
Right.
I said, no, because you're just going to be a sadder person because of it. Maybe, you think you're going to be, better at a certain thing, maybe at work or whatever, but you're robbing yourself of self-love. And if you can't love yourself and don't find yourself worthy, you are not going to be confident. When I was younger, um, feeling very old lately, but when I was younger, and we're talking about going through school, I had very little confidence, very little self-esteem. I was not confident about speaking up in class. And as I got older, I matured. I learned skills and how to develop confidence. And as I learned all that, I developed a lot better self-esteem and realized that some of my negative self-talk was really kind of irrational. Because when people focus on self-talk that's irrational, such as, I can't stand this, I have to do this, they put a lot of shoulds on themselves and they get themselves in a trap. And as I learned as an adult how to think more clearly and think more positively and not have a lot of what they call cognitive distortions, that's a hallmark of cognitive behavior therapy. If you think in cognitive distortions, which is all or nothing thinking, fortune telling, oh, I'll never get over this. When you exaggerate, when you personalize things, when you label, oh, he's just lazy, I'm just a jerk or whatever, these are going to have assaults to your self-esteem. So
Yeah.
the more you can think clearly and contradict those cognitive distortions and replace them with more factual, specific thinking, the better.
Yeah. Judy, when you were talking, what was coming up for me is like, I think a lot of people struggle with, you know, a lot of people just struggle with this negative internal dialogue. And like you said, like labeling and judging ourselves and others. Can you talk a little bit about like where exactly does this come from? Because what we end up doing, a lot of us, is like, well, I'm saying these things because there is something wrong with me. There is something, I do have all these flaws. So of course it's all true. So they're finding evidence now, but can you talk about where this originates from?
Well, I think it comes from a variety of factors. Certainly, it comes from upbringing and the messages that you get. However, I really hesitate to even say that because parents and caregivers do the best they can. I have never, in my 40 plus years of doing therapy and coaching, ever found anybody who meant to not be healthy for someone else and didn't mean well.
Yeah.
The problem is we're imperfect. So maybe parents make mistakes, teachers make mistakes, kids might be, insulting you in in school or in the playground. There's no shortage of ways that we get judged. I think it's important not to blame it, but only to have insight and to understand where it comes from
Mhm.
to some degree. And then what do you really do about it? Instead of the why, focus on the what's next.
Yeah.
How do you build on that? But I must say, I was just speaking to someone yesterday online on Skype, and we talked about how, now he's going through a divorce, how he used his wife's narrative about him as he wasn't such a good father and such a good husband, when really it might have reflected more about her. So sometimes we keep other people's narratives and we believe it.
Yeah.
And then you look and make social on Facebook and then social media and Instagram, and you have all these negative social comparisons. I'm not as pretty as these people. I'm not as popular. I don't have my life together like these people. And
Yeah.
there's no shortage of people to compare yourself to, whether it's in your life or on social media. So I think there's a barrage of factors. And the important thing is the number one lesson in self-esteem is never compare yourself to anybody else. Only compare yourself to yourself and how you were yesterday and
Yeah.
how you are growing. That
Yeah.
is really the only, because if our self-esteem is based on being above average, what happens to the bottom half of the class? What happens to the bottom half of below average people? Did they have less self-esteem? Not necessarily. So the ability to see yourself as lovable, worthy, a work in progress, and can forgive yourself for mistakes made and regrets for not knowing then what you know now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing you say is oftentimes a lot of us blame the past, right? Well, it was because my dad did this, or my mom said that, or my grandma, grandpa, or whatever, my brother said this, or sister. And this is what keeps us trapped, right? And what I love that you pointed out is that oftentimes it's not even our own language. Like you said, it's not our narrative. And I know clients will bring up, well, I think this thing's wrong with me. Like I'm not wearing the right shoes, or I'm not, my haircut, there's something wrong with my hair. And what I like to ask my clients was this a problem before that other person said anything for you?
I think you brought up a good point about, sort of going back and saying, this is why I'm like that because of my dad or my upbringing. I'm not being insensitive to trauma. There's trauma can affect our self-esteem and the core of our being.
Yeah.
However, how do we go from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic wisdom? How do we do that? How do we survive? And it's actually not true. It's a cognitive distortion. I mean, I'm not really talking about physical abuse right now or real like severe abuse. Because obviously if you get hit, you're going to hurt and, whatever. But in general, it's your take on what they did and how you let it affect you.
Yeah.
If you are still, let's say, an adult and not saying something to your own parent because, oh, he's not going to like, my father's not going to like this, or my mom's going to whatever. Well, are you worried about fitting into their expectations? Or do you decide for yourself, regardless of what they're going to like, what you want to say? And then if you don't like their reaction, you deal with that in the best way possible. Too
Yeah.
many times we feel trapped by other people and the way they act. And that is a cognitive distortion that people drive me crazy. People make me upset. Nobody can go between your ears except yourself.
I love it.
No
Yeah.
one can change the neurons in your brain.
Yeah.
And maybe when they insulted you, when she insulted you, you were upset. That takes ownership. If you don't take ownership, you're not going to have good self-esteem because your self-esteem is going to be based on what other people think. And if other people are giving you a break, and you never want to put your self-esteem in anybody else's hands. Never.
Oh my gosh. So what you just said was so powerful. For the viewers listening, can you hear why this type of functioning is very unstable? To wait for that reward from someone else, that pat on the back or that ego boost or that compliment, and it's sort of like you're sitting around waiting for a treat, right? That may or may not come, and then of course our bodies are like waiting for that, and we need it, right? Because there's not enough awareness around how we can give these things to ourselves that, often recovering people pleasers are struggling with, right? Like I want to feel validated. I want to feel heard and seen and recognized and appreciated. And it's like we're just trying to claw our way through life and our relationships, trying to get this from someone else. Judy, can you talk a little bit about what's missing for these people? I heard you say compassion earlier, and I know a lot of this audience, including myself, we didn't have good role models for compassion and empathy.
The people, let's say, who raise us, not good role models for compassion, they didn't have it either.
Yeah.
And we just try to improve as much as we can and get away from the blame game.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you can't understand, oh, this is where this came from. This is why I have my triggers, because when I was young, this happened or whatever. I mean, I certainly still have my triggers. I am aware of them, but I handle them very well because I'm self-aware and I'm not feeling like a victim. I feel like a victor. So people can either think in victim language, like she made me this way, or it's because of my past or whatever. But we actually are editors of our past right now. We can edit our stories in a very, very different way. So I think that you asked about self-compassion. That's kind of the new self-esteem. You know how like the 50s is the new 40 or whatever, however they do, the 40s is the new 50 or whatever. How people kind of feel younger or whatever. I would say self-compassion is the new self-esteem. Self-esteem used to be thought of that self-esteem is your achievements. It's all based on achievement.
Yeah.
It's doing really well, being above average, whatever. That really doesn't necessarily make you any happier in the long run. I'm not saying there's not quick fixes. It feels good to get a compliment and whatever, but real, true, stable self-esteem has to do with not beating yourself up, being kind and forgiving to yourself. That's probably more important than what you achieve.
Yeah.
Now, again, that doesn't mean you sit on a sofa all day and watch TV and not do anything. I mean, you want to be productive, but when you're committed and you're challenged and you use stress to your advantage rather than avoid stress, you're going to be much happier than someone who just kind of waits for life to give them what they think they deserve or what they want.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
still be proactive, but don't be hard on yourself. Enjoy the progress, enjoy the journey, instead of when I lose my 15 pounds, then I'll be happy. When I find a mate, then I'll be happy. When I get one of my favorite little examples is I had a client many years ago. When I find a husband, then I'll be happy. She ended up getting married. Then about 5 years later, she came in my office. When I get my divorce, I'll be so much happier. So like you can't look on the outside. Yeah, right. Targets keep on moving. So maybe you don't have any more targets.
Yeah.
As long as basic needs are met, you can be happy right now. You can choose it.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be some pulls from the past or from trauma or whatever, but we can choose the way we live right now. We're not a victim of our past.
Yeah. And this is really a choice, right? I know probably some people watching, and I know some of my clients who will be watching, they're kind of still in this victim place where, hey, it's because of that person I'm not heard. It's because of that person I'm suffering. And like start listening, as Judy's saying, listen to this narrative and notice like like you said, like it's just not logical. How can someone stop you from listening or stop you from being heard? It doesn't really make sense. And
right. But a lot of times people think that they're not in control. And one of the biggest elements of stress resiliency is a sense of control and self-empowerment.
Yeah.
And when you have sense of control, you're generally a lot happier because you take responsibility for yourself and you can do something to better your life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people would rather complain about others and they're collectors of injustices.
Right.
But that doesn't get you very far because you're going to be negative, steeped in negativity, and you're going to get bitter instead of better.
Yeah. And another point you touched on earlier is like, what I like to tell clients is like, we're not human doings, we're human beings.
Right.
And a lot of this audience, especially, if you have like a more avoidant or anxious attachment styles, you're perhaps trying to do things so you can get love, so you can get appreciation, so you can get respect. And this never ends, right? This climbing to find this in your partner never ends. Judy, can you talk to us a little about why this never works?
Whenever you look for your self-esteem and your sense of worth from other people, you have no control. Exactly. And you need to empower yourself. Now, that doesn't mean it's not nice to be loved by other people and approved of and get the A and get an applause and get a good comment from someone. But if your self-esteem is based on that, that will be shifting sand. and you'll be constantly anxious looking for what other people are thinking about you. And you know what? A lot of people can approve of you and you still can have low self-esteem.
Yeah.
You still can have it. So it doesn't really do much except make you more neurotic, needy, codependent, and anxious.
Exactly. And I love how you brought up anxiety. For everyone out there watching who perhaps says things like, I struggle with social anxiety, or maybe you get anxious around dating or in your marriage, or even just like public speaking, maybe you do some speaking at work and you're looking for that thumbs up from the audience, right? Like you're doing good, you're doing enough. And can you see, for those watching, why this creates anxiety? It's just not stable.
Well, because you're not in control of the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
So like I've done a lot of presenting and lately it's been virtual with COVID, but I am going to actually be speaking in person in December. I'm kind of excited about that. Um, and I obviously want to do a good job. I like to look at the evaluations.
Sure.
I'm concerned about it, but that's not my goal. My goal is to be the best presenter that I can be.
Mhm.
My goal is to be as prepared as I can and try to have interactive, meaningful experiences that people can learn something from. So my goal is not, oh, I hope they like me. I mean, that would be nice. And believe me, I don't want people to hate my presentations, but my focus is on what's in my control.
Yeah.
And what's in my control is using my knowledge and my skills of knowing a lot about this field and about resiliency and workplace wellness and mental health, and share it in the best way possible. And whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is, Judy, you just changed your goal. You just shifted your goal. Whereas, like, maybe some of us are like, oh, I hope I get that applause. I hope that people smile. I hope that I make people laugh, blah, blah, blah. Remember, we can't make people do things. But we are shifting our goal now to, like, exactly what's in my control. And it's like, well, maybe I want my message to be clear, can be a new goal. I want them to be able to I want to create an inspiring environment. I want to be really, I want to fine tune my message. All of these things are within our control, and then our body gets to relax because we know that we're just maintaining what's in our control and just letting go, sort of just letting go of this tight leash that we have, or we think we have, on the world around us,
Right. And that doesn't mean that you're not in tune and sensitive to your audience. So
Exactly.
like if I see people not seeming that interested or looking at their phones or whatever, then I would say, okay, maybe I'm spending too much time on this, or,
Yeah.
but that's okay. You're getting cues from the audience for, if they're engaged or not. If there's a lot of, enthusiasm or whatever, I keep on going and I adjust. So it's not that you don't care what people think. It's that that's not the goal. The goal is to do a good job and do what's in your control and be sensitive to the cues you get.
I love it. Just being aware of the cues and not making any meaning out of them about yourself, maybe other than just like, oh, just reflecting back, what am I doing now? Is there something
Right,
I could be?
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So another cognitive distortion is jumping to conclusions. So let's say someone, and while I'm, when I used to present in person, someone would get up and walk away. Now, maybe they had to go to the bathroom, maybe they were bored, who knows?
Yeah.
But, that would be an example of jumping to conclusions. Oh, they probably hate this presentation, or they're probably bored, when maybe they had a phone call or something, or so, you know, it's important to stay focused on what your goal is and not see that your self-worth is dependent on it. So for instance, if maybe you had a B presentation instead of an A presentation. Maybe it's like, it didn't work out as well as I thought. I only had, I mean, I've generally been very happy with my presentations, but many, many years ago, there was a presentation that I did for people from another country whose language was not English. And I realized some of my cute little jokes and my little exercises or play on words didn't really get the laughs that it usually does. And so I would have given myself a B for that presentation, but I learned from that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. It's like we're using this feedback as a way to make ourselves better or be better communicators or like ways we can improve ourselves rather than, all of the ways in which there's something wrong with us. And as we've covered, there's nothing wrong with us, right? There's nothing that's from the past that's causing us. There's nothing we need to fix about ourselves. It's just what I'm hearing is like just like constructive criticism. What can I do better? Maybe I should change things up, but you're really in the end doing it for yourself, right? So you can be a more effective speaker, so you can feel more comfortable on that date, or being able to go to sleep at night, or whatever your goal is. And I know a large part of this community really struggles with giving themselves that self-love, or even feeling like they have permission. They're like, it's a lot of people like waiting for permission to feel good or to be proud of themselves.
Interesting you said that, because I'm thinking of a client a long time ago who it was saying something, and I said something like, "Oh, it sounds like you are feeling really sad about that," or I just sort of put her feelings into words and she looked at me and said, "Do you think I have a right to feel that way?" And it was really struck me,
Yeah.
because what low self-esteem someone has that they're not even sure they have a right to feel what they feel. You
Yeah.
have a right to feel anything.
Yeah.
But when you don't give yourself permission, as you say, to use your words, if you don't give yourself permission that it's okay to feel the way that I feel, you're going to end up not feeling good about yourself, because you're going to look for other people for validation. It's it's like a cherry on top. It's like whipped cream. It's great. It's wonderful. It's great when people love you.
Mhm.
But if you can't love yourself first, and like the flight attendant says, you put your mask on before helping young children.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think selflessness is a virtue.
Yeah.
If I'm selfless, that's a virtue,
The
particularly
martyr.
women. But you know what? The martyr syndrome is completely overrated,
Yeah.
because you're going to be depleted if you don't give to yourself even before you give to someone else. It's not a selfish act. It's an act of you can give other people the best of you when you nurture yourself first.
Yep. Yep. Can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. Exactly.
And
Right.
I love that. I love that metaphor of, yeah, I mean,
Right.
yeah, it's, and I
Because,
love,
oh,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
I just made me think of, people can't give others what they can't give themselves. If you use that as a rule of thumb,
Yeah.
and you want to give others something that, let's say it's your children or spouse or maid or coworkers, but you don't actually have it yourself, you're not going to do such a good job. There's going to be a lot of strings attached and issues that muddy the waters.
Yeah. Yep. And I know we can talk about this all day long, and just to honor your time, Judy, and my time, and all the viewers watching, for those of you who are out there, if you're really struggling to feel good about who you are, maybe you are one of those people who are like, do I have permission to be able to do that? And self-esteem comes up for you over and over again. Your level of self-assertiveness, your level of integrity with yourself, right? All of these things that really affect, like you said earlier, it's not ability based, but it's more about how we feel about who we are as a person. And so, Judy, for those who are struggling with like, well, I don't know what compassion looks like. I don't know what empathy, what does self-love look like? I know you have a lot of resources on your website, and you also had a gift for this audience, the Personal Development 101 book. Can you share a little more about that?
Well, the Personal Development 101 ebook is a 48-page ebook that talks about how to deal with stress, how to forgive, how to handle anger, good assertive communication skills. Basically, it gives you some basic building blocks for developing a healthy, emotionally well life.
Mhm. Yep. And I know you also have is it the 48 days of self-esteem? Do I have that?
A year of
A
self-esteem
year of
is,
self-esteem.
yeah, a year of self-esteem is my latest book. I've written I've written a few self-help books on either self-esteem or just general, stress resiliency, and a year of self-esteem, which is like basically daily affirmations, practices, reflections that can kind of get you step by step to a higher self-esteem. And I also have, you can see it on my website, Belmont Wellness, and also on Amazon. Um, Different books for therapists and coaches and professionals to use with their clients, practical hands-on exercises, activities, worksheets, handouts. And it's a 4-book series called the Tips and Tools for the Therapeutic Toolbox series. And it sort of is hands-on, different things you can do to actually get your clients or yourself unstuck.
Mhm.
But all that is on Belmont Wellness. I'm also on LinkedIn, and all the different social medias. But I also have many free resources on my website. I have a lot of psychoeducational resources like quizzes, like, what's your forgiveness IQ? How emotionally well are you? And some handouts that might be very helpful that are free.
Awesome. Like truly amazing work from Judy. If you're struggling with this, like go get it. Like this is not going to be up forever. If this sounds like you struggle to put your needs or make your needs and desires a priority, or maybe you're struggling with that, there's an underlying feeling of resentment towards others because maybe you are experiencing this martyr syndrome and feeling like you have to sacrifice your needs. And all of the tools you really need are right here. They're free today in this Personal Development 101 book, which will put the link below this video. So go get it. Don't wait. Get it today if you are struggling with this. So Judy, I want to thank you again for being here and really just giving us transformation here. Just such amazing, life-changing stuff here. And it can change. Your life can change is the underlying premise here.
Well, thank you very much for a wonderful interview. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Judy.
Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.